For 17 years, I built a $1 million business with a woman I loved. Then she asked to be just friends, and I agreed without hesitation. Turns out, she'd been feeding our company's secrets to her powerful lover while planning to steal everything we'd created together. My name is Ethan Davies. I'm 45 years old, and until 6 months ago, I thought I had it all figured out. A successful family business, 2 great kids, and what I believed was a strong marriage. Boy, was I wrong about that last part. Serafina and I built Davies Auto Sales together from nothing. Started in a tiny lot with 8 used cars and a dream back in 2008. She handled the books. I handled the sales floor and customer relationships. We were a team, or so I thought. Over the years, we expanded to 3 locations across town, specializing in premium pre-owned vehicles. Mercedes, BMW, Lexus, the works. Our customers trusted us because we ran an honest operation. The business was our baby before we had actual babies. Leo came along when we were 29, followed by Sophia 4 years later. Watching Serafina with our kids in those early days, I thought I'd married my soulmate. She was patient with Leo's endless questions, gentle with Sophia's fears about starting school. She seemed like the perfect wife and mother. But somewhere along the way, things started shifting. Small things at first. Serafina would get these moods where she'd go quiet for days, giving me one-word answers when I tried to talk to her. When I'd ask what was wrong, she'd tell me nothing, that she was just tired from work. I'd buy flowers, plan date nights, do whatever I could to snap her out of it. Eventually, she'd come around, and things would go back to normal for a while. The pattern became predictable. Every few months, she'd withdraw emotionally. I'd bend over backward, trying to fix whatever I'd apparently done wrong. She'd eventually warm up again, and I convinced myself we'd worked through another rough patch. Looking back, I see now that she was training me to accept this behavior as normal. The silent treatments got longer as the years went on. What started as a day or 2 stretched to a week or more. She'd function normally with the kids and at work, laughing with customers and chatting with employees. But at home, it was like I didn't exist. She'd answer direct questions about logistics. Who's picking up Leo from soccer practice? What time is Sophia's piano recital? But that was it. I started second-guessing everything I said and did. Was I spending too much time at the dealership? Not enough. Did I forget some important date? Say something wrong? I became a detective in my own marriage, analyzing every interaction for clues about what might have set her off this time. The worst part was never knowing which version of Serafina I'd come home to. Some days she'd greet me with a smile and ask about my day. Other days, I'd walk into a house so cold you could practically see your breath. The kids learned to read the signs, too. Leo would retreat to his room with his headphones. Sophia would stick close to me, sensing the tension even when she couldn't understand it. The dealership became my refuge from the chaos at home. At least there I knew the rules. Customers wanted honest deals, fair prices, and reliable service. No hidden meanings, no emotional landmines waiting to explode. Just straightforward business relationships where everyone's expectations were clear. Serafina and I maintained our professional partnership, even as our personal relationship deteriorated. She'd sit across from me during morning meetings, discussing inventory reports and sales targets like we were business partners who barely knew each other, which I guess is what we'd become. The BMW inventory is moving slower than projected, Serafina announced during one particularly tense Tuesday meeting. Her voice was crisp, professional, completely devoid of warmth. I noticed that too, I replied, keeping my tone equally businesslike. Maybe we should adjust the pricing strategy. I already did. Mark them down. 5% yesterday. She hadn't mentioned this decision to me, her supposed equal partner in the business. Time was when we'd discuss every major decision together. But lately she'd been making unilateral choices and informing me after the fact. Our office manager, Eleanor, shifted uncomfortably in her chair. Even the staff could sense the tension between us. I caught her exchanging glances with our head salesman Gareth, both of them probably wondering what was going on with the bosses. After the meeting, I cornered Serafina in her office. She was typing furiously on her computer, not bothering to look up when I walked in. We need to talk about communication, I said, closing the door behind me. About what specifically? She asked, still staring at her screen. About you making major pricing decisions without consulting me. We're supposed to be partners here. Finally, she looked up. Her expression was ice cold. I am consulting you. I just told you what I did. That's not consulting, Serafina. That's informing. There's a difference. She leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. Fine. Next time, I'll ask permission before doing my job. It's not about permission. It's about respect. About working together instead of working around each other. Are we talking about business now or something else? She asked, and there was that edge in her voice that told me I was about to step on another landmine. I'm talking about business, I said carefully. Good, because I don't have time for relationship therapy during work hours. The conversation ended there like so many others. I walked back to my office feeling like I'd lost another round in a game whose rules I'd never learned. That evening, I picked up Leo for soccer practice. He was unusually quiet during the drive home, staring out the window instead of chattering about his day like usual. Everything okay, buddy? I asked. Dad, are you and Mom getting divorced? The question hit me like a punch to the gut. My 16-year-old son was asking the question I'd been avoiding for months. Why would you ask that? I managed. Because you guys don't talk anymore. Not really. And when you do, it feels like you're mad at each other. I pulled into our driveway and turned off the engine, trying to figure out how to answer him honestly without frightening him. Your mom and I are going through a rough patch, I finally said. But we're both committed to this family. Leo nodded, but I could tell he wasn't entirely convinced. How could he be? I wasn't entirely convinced myself. The breaking point came during our quarterly business review. Serafina had been pushing for expansion in luxury vehicle financing, something we discussed months earlier, but never finalized. During the meeting with our bank representative, she presented it as a done deal. We've already identified the target inventory, Serafina explained to Mr. Richardson from First National. 50 premium vehicles, average price point of 75,000 euros. I sat there stunned. We never had this conversation. Never agreed on those numbers. This was $1 million commitment she was making without consulting me. That's quite an investment, Richardson noted, looking between us. What's your partner's take on the timeline? Ethan and I are completely aligned on the strategy, Serafina said smoothly, shooting me a warning look. After Richardson left, I confronted her immediately. What the hell was that about? Business expansion. Something you'd understand if you paid attention during our planning sessions. We never had planning sessions about this, Serafina. You just committed us to $1 million financing deal without discussing it with me first. Her face flushed with anger. I've been trying to discuss expansion with you for months, but you're always too busy or too tired or too something. That's not true, and you know it. When was the last time you initiated a business conversation that wasn't about a customer complaint or a scheduling conflict? I opened my mouth to argue, then realized she was twisting the situation again, making me defend myself for her unilateral decision-making. This isn't about communication patterns, I said firmly. This is about you making major financial commitments without your business partner's input. Fine, she snapped. I'll call Richardson back and tell him we need more time. But don't blame me when our competitors beat us to the premium financing market. That evening, Leo approached me in the garage where I was working on my old Camaro, a 1969 SS that I'd been restoring for years. It was my therapy, the one place where I could work with my hands and clear my head. Dad, can I ask you something? Sure, buddy. Hand me that socket wrench. He passed me the tool and leaned against the workbench. Are you going to fight for our family? The question stopped me cold. I looked up from the engine bay to see my son's serious expression. What do you mean? Mom's been different for a long time. You've been trying to make her happy, but it's not working. So what's your plan? The directness of his question floored me. Here was my 16-year-old son asking me to step up and be a man about my marriage. Sometimes relationships go through difficult periods, I said carefully. Dad, I'm not a little kid. I can see what's happening. The question is, what are you going to do about it? I sat down my wrench and really looked at my son. When had he become so perceptive? When had he started seeing me as someone who needed to take action instead of just enduring? You're right, I admitted. I have been trying to manage your mother's moods instead of addressing the real problems. So what's the plan? I wiped my hands on a shop rag, thinking. The plan is to stop walking on eggshells and start demanding honest communication. Leo nodded approvingly. Good, because Sophie has been asking me if we're going to have to choose which parent to live with. That hit me like a sledgehammer. My 12-year-old daughter was already thinking about custody arrangements. The conversation I'd been avoiding for months finally happened on a Tuesday evening in March. Serafina had been giving me the silent treatment for 3 days over something I still couldn't identify. I tried the usual approaches, flowers, dinner reservations, gentle questions about her day. Nothing worked. I found her in our bedroom packing clothes into a suitcase. Going somewhere? I asked. Business trip. The new financing deal requires some face-to-face meetings in Milan. This was the first I'd heard of any business trip. When did this come up? Yesterday. I told you about it. No, you didn't. She stopped packing and turned to face me. Ethan, I'm tired of this. Tired of what? This marriage? This constant tension? Walking around each other like strangers in our own house. My heart started racing, but I kept my voice steady. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe we should consider separation. Take some time apart to figure things out. I stared at her for a long moment. After 17 years of marriage, 2 children, and a business we'd built together, she was suggesting we just take a break. Is that what you want? I asked. I think it might be best for everyone. What about the kids? What about the business? The kids will adapt. Kids are resilient. And the business will survive. We're professionals. Her casual dismissal of our children's well-being and our shared enterprise told me everything I needed to know about where her priorities lay. So that's it. 17 years, and you want to just walk away. I'm not walking away. I'm suggesting we take a step back and maybe try being friends instead of this. After 17 years of marriage, she wanted to be friends. The word hit me like a physical blow. But strangely, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Clarity. You know what, Serafina? You're right. She looked surprised. I think she'd expected me to fight, to beg, to promise to change. I agree, I continued. Let's be friends. Really? I think that's exactly what we should do. She seemed taken aback by my immediate acceptance. Okay, good. I think this is the right decision. I nodded, feeling a sense of relief I hadn't expected. I think so too. After she left for her business trip, I sat in my home office and made a list of things I needed to handle. Lawyer consultations, financial assessments, custody arrangements. For the first time in years, I felt like I was taking action instead of just reacting. Leo found me there an hour later. Mom left, he said. I know. Are you okay? I looked up at my son, this young man who'd been watching me stumble through my marriage for years. You know what? I think I'm going to be. 2 weeks after Serafina left for her extended business trip, I discovered who had been pulling her strings. Victor Sterling owned half the commercial real estate in our county and had his fingers in every major development project. I'd heard his name around town, but never paid much attention until my lawyer mentioned him during our consultation. Your wife's been seen around town with Victor Sterling, Attorney Marcus Hayes said, sliding a manila folder across his desk. Thought you should know before we proceed with any separation agreements. I opened the folder to find photographs of Serafina and a distinguished man in his 50s entering an upscale hotel. The timestamp showed they were taken during her supposed business trip to Milan. How long has this been going on? I asked. Based on what my investigator found, at least 6 months, maybe longer. 6 months. While I'd been trying to save our marriage, she'd been planning her exit strategy with another man. There's more, Marcus continued. Sterling's been pushing for commercial development rights to that land behind your main dealership. The zoning board's been resisting, but word is he's got political connections working the angles. The pieces clicked into place. Serafina's sudden interest in expanding our financing options, her unilateral business decisions, her access to our financial records and customer database. She'd been feeding Sterling information about our operation while positioning herself as his inside track to prime real estate. What's my play here? I asked. Legally, document everything, protect your assets, and prepare for a fight. Personally, that's your call. I drove straight from Marcus's office to our main dealership. Gareth, our head salesman, was closing a deal with a young couple looking at a used Lexus. "Ethan, glad you're here," Gareth said after the customers left. "That BMW financing deal your wife set up. The bank's asking questions about our debt-to-income ratios." "What kind of questions?" "They want to see our books going back 2 years. Something about verifying our capacity for the expanded credit line." I felt my jaw tighten. Serafina had committed us to financing deals that would require full financial disclosure, giving Sterling's banking connections access to every detail of our operation. "Gareth, I need you to call Richardson at First National and tell him we're putting the BMW financing on hold pending internal review." But Serafina said, "Serafina doesn't speak for the dealership anymore. I'm making the decisions now." That evening, I called a family meeting. Leo and Sophia sat on the couch while I took the chair across from them. "Your mother and I are getting divorced," I said directly. No point in sugarcoating it anymore. Sophia started crying immediately. Leo put his arm around his sister but kept his eyes on me. "Is it because of that man she's been seeing?" Leo asked. "You know about him?" "I'm not blind, Dad. I've seen the way she acts when her phone buzzes. The way she's been dressing differently, staying out late. Yes, that's part of it. But the problems between your mother and me go deeper than just her affair." "What happens to us?" Sophia asked through her tears. "You'll always be my priority. Both of you. We'll figure out custody arrangements that work for everyone, but nothing changes about how much I love you." "Will we have to move?" Leo asked. "Not if I can help it. This is your home. I'll fight to keep it that way." I meant every word. Sterling and Serafina could scheme all they wanted, but they weren't taking my children's stability away from them. I hired Reese Stone the next day. Reese had been my sergeant during my National Guard service and now ran a private investigation firm that specialized in corporate security. If anyone could help me protect my business and family from Sterling's machinations, it was Reese. "So your wife's been feeding business intelligence to a real estate developer," Reese summarized after I explained the situation. "And now he's positioning himself to acquire your property through political pressure." That's my read on it. What do you want me to do about it? I want to know everything about Victor Sterling's business dealings. Every project, every political connection, every financial vulnerability. If he wants to play hardball, I'll show him what hardball looks like. Reese smiled grimly. Now you're talking my language. Within a week, Reese had compiled a comprehensive dossier on Sterling's empire. The man was leveraged to the hilt with several projects dependent on municipal zoning approvals that could be challenged. More importantly, he'd been cutting corners on environmental regulations for his waterfront developments. The EPA would be very interested in these soil contamination reports he's been hiding, Reese said, pointing to documents in the file. And the city council would love to know about the campaign contributions that somehow got overlooked in their disclosure statements. How do we use this? Carefully, but effectively. I scheduled a meeting with Sterling at his downtown office, ostensibly to discuss mutual business interests. He agreed immediately, probably thinking he was going to intimidate me into selling. Victor Sterling was exactly what I expected. Expensive suit, firm handshake, office designed to impress and intimidate. He gestured for me to sit across from his massive desk. "Mr. Davies, I understand you're going through some personal difficulties," Sterling said with fake sympathy. "I thought we might discuss how I could help ease your transition." "What kind of help are you offering?" "Well, divorce can be expensive. Asset division, legal fees, custody arrangements. I might be interested in purchasing your dealership properties at fair market value. Give you the liquidity you'll need for a fresh start." The audacity was breathtaking. He was sitting there offering to buy the very properties he'd been scheming to acquire through political manipulation. "That's generous," I said, opening the folder Reese had prepared. "But I think I'll keep my properties. In fact, I think you've got bigger problems to worry about." I slid the environmental reports across his desk. "The environmental regulators might be interested to know about the contaminated soil you buried under that shopping center last year." His confident expression faltered as he recognized the documents. "And the city council," I continued. "They'd probably like to review these campaign contribution records you forgot to file properly." Sterling's face hardened. "What do you want?" I want you to stay away from my business, my property, and my family. You can keep Serafina. She made her choice, but you're done trying to manipulate my livelihood. You're making a mistake, Davies. The only mistake I made was trusting the wrong person for 17 years. But I learned from my mistakes. I stood up and headed for the door. Oh, and Victor, if you come after me or my children, I'll make sure every regulatory agency in the state gets copies of these files. Walking out of that office, I felt like myself again for the first time in years. Serafina returned from her business trip with Isabel Moreau in tow, a shark and designer clothing who specialized in high-asset divorces. They ambushed me at the dealership on a Tuesday morning, walking into my office like they owned the place. Mr. Davies, Moreau said, not bothering with pleasantries. My client believes a quick settlement would benefit everyone involved. I gestured for them to sit, keeping my expression neutral. What kind of settlement? Moreau opened her briefcase with theatrical precision. Mrs. Davies is willing to accept 60% of all marital assets, including the dealership properties, in exchange for shared custody and a streamlined divorce process. The audacity was breathtaking. Serafina sat there smirking, thinking she'd cornered me. 60%? I repeated calmly. Given the circumstances of the marriage breakdown, Moreau continued. My client feels this represents fair compensation. What circumstances would those be? Your emotional neglect and failure to prioritize the marriage. I leaned back in my chair, studying Serafina's face. She couldn't meet my eyes. Interesting theory, I said, especially considering the circumstances of her relationship with Victor Sterling. Moreau's professional mask slipped slightly. I'm not sure what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out Reese's surveillance photos. 6 months of documented adultery and business espionage. Serafina's face went white as I spread the photos across my desk. These show your client providing confidential business information to a commercial real estate developer while conducting an extramarital affair, I continued. I'm sure the State Bar would be interested in how you plan to present emotional neglect as grounds when adultery and corporate espionage were the actual causes. Moreau gathered the papers quickly. We'll need time to review this new information. Take all the time you need, but understand that any settlement discussions start with acknowledging who actually destroyed this marriage. After they left, I called Leo. He'd been staying with his grandfather while I dealt with the legal situation. How'd it go, Dad? Your mother tried to take 60% of everything and claim I was emotionally neglectful. Did you show them the pictures? I did. Amazing how quickly their tune changed. Good. Mom made her choice. Now she gets to live with the consequences. The custody hearing 3 weeks later revealed the true extent of Serafina's selfishness. Moreau had clearly advised her to present herself as the devoted mother. But Leo changed that narrative immediately. Your Honor, my 16-year-old son said when called to testify, I'd like to live with my father full-time. My sister feels the same way. Judge Bennett looked surprised. Can you explain your reasoning? Mom's been lying to us for months. She's been cheating on Dad and trying to steal our family business. We can't trust her anymore. Serafina started crying, but they were tears of manipulation, not genuine remorse. Furthermore, Leo continued, she's been trying to turn us against Dad by telling us he was the problem. But we're not blind. We saw how he tried to save the marriage while she was sneaking around. Judge Bennett reviewed the custody evaluation and made his decision. Given the children's ages and expressed preferences, combined with the evidence of marital misconduct, I'm awarding primary custody to Mr. Davies. Serafina lost it completely, screaming about unfairness and bias. Moreau had to physically restrain her from approaching the bench. The property settlement was equally decisive. Serafina got 30% of our assets, enough to start over, but not enough to reward her betrayal. The dealership remained entirely under my control. 2 months after the divorce was finalized, I ran into Alara Vance at the grocery store. She'd been Serafina's college friend and occasional confidant. Ethan, I owe you an apology, Alara said, approaching my cart in the produce section. For what? I knew about the affair. Serafina told me about Victor months ago, but she made it sound like your marriage was already over. What changed your mind? Leo. He came by last week to get some of his mom's things from our house. The way he talked about you, about how you handled everything with dignity and strength. I realized Serafina had been lying. About a lot more than just the affair. We talked for a few more minutes about the kids, about how they were adjusting. As we prepared to part ways, Alara touched my arm gently. You know, I always thought you deserved better than the way she treated you. I'm beginning to think so too. That evening, Leo and Sophia helped me finish setting up our new apartment. It wasn't as big as the house, but it was ours. Dad, Sophia said, hanging up her artwork in her new bedroom. Are you happy now? I considered the question seriously. You know what? I think I'm going to be. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I received a call that changed everything. Dr. Helen Green from the family court had some unexpected news about the custody evaluation. Mr. Davies, during our standard family assessment, we ran DNA tests on both children as part of the medical records review. There's something you need to know about Sophia. My stomach dropped. What kind of something? The results indicate that you're not Sophia's biological father. I sat down heavily in my office chair. Sophia, my 12-year-old daughter, who looked at me like I hung the moon, wasn't mine biologically. Are you certain? We ran the test twice. I'm sorry, but there's no doubt. After hanging up, I stared at the wall for a long time. Then I did something that surprised even me. I felt absolutely nothing change about how I felt towards Sophia. She was my daughter in every way that mattered. When I told Reese about the results, he wasn't surprised. I had suspicions, he admitted. The timeline of Serafina's affair with Sterling goes back longer than we initially thought. Want me to investigate further? No, it doesn't matter who her biological father is. I'm her dad. That evening, I sat both kids down for what I thought would be the hardest conversation of my life. Sophia, I learned something today about our family. I began gently. It turns out that biologically, I'm not your father. Her face crumpled immediately. Does that mean you don't want me anymore? Sweetheart, look at me. I knelt down in front of her chair. You are my daughter. You will always be my daughter. Nothing will ever change that. But if I'm not really yours, you are really mine. You're mine because I chose you every single day for 12 years. You're mine because I taught you to ride a bike and helped with homework and held you when you had nightmares. Biology doesn't make a father. Love does. Leo put his arm around his sister. Dad's right, Sophia. Family isn't about DNA. It's about who shows up. 3 weeks later, I formally adopted Sophia. Judge Bennett made it official in a brief ceremony where Sophia wore her best dress and insisted we take pictures. Now it's legal and everything, she said proudly, showing off her new adoption certificate. Serafina tried to contest the adoption through her lawyer, claiming I was overstepping my bounds. The judge dismissed her petition immediately. Mrs. Davies forfeited her right to object to Mr. Davies' parental relationship with this child when she chose to deceive him about paternity while destroying their marriage, Judge Bennett ruled. 2 years later, Davies' auto sales was thriving. Without Serafina's emotional chaos and Sterling's manipulation, I'd been able to focus on what I did best, building relationships with customers and growing the business. Leo had just graduated high school and was planning to study business at the state university. He'd been working part-time at the dealership, learning the operation from the ground up. Dad, I want to join the business officially after college, he told me one Saturday as we worked on my Camaro together. Are you sure? There are a lot of other opportunities out there. I'm sure. You built something honest here. I want to help you keep building it. Sophia, now 14, had developed into a confident young woman who knew exactly who she was and where she belonged. She still called me Dad, still came to me with her problems, still made me feel like the luckiest man alive. Alara had become a regular part of our lives. She'd started stopping by the dealership occasionally, then joining us for dinner, then staying for movie nights with the kids. It happened so gradually that none of us noticed we'd become a family unit until we already were. Are you going to marry Alara? Sophia asked me one evening as we cleaned up after dinner. Would that bother you? Are you kidding? She actually likes spending time with us. Mom always acted like we were interrupting her life. 6 months later, I proposed to Alara in our living room with both kids present. She said yes immediately, then hugged Leo and Sophia before hugging me. "I love you all," she said through happy tears. "This is what I always wanted, a real family." The wedding was small, held in our backyard with close friends and family. Leo walked Sophia down the aisle as my best woman, and she carried a bouquet of sunflowers. During my vows, I looked out at the faces of people who truly mattered. Reese, who'd helped me find my strength, my kids, who'd chosen to stand by me, Alara, who loved us exactly as we were. "Sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is having someone show you who they really are," I said. "It gives you the chance to build something real with people who deserve your trust." Serafina wasn't invited to the wedding. Last I heard, Sterling had moved on to younger prey, leaving her to figure out her life alone. Sometimes people get exactly what they've earned. As for me, I learned that agreeing to be friends with someone who betrayed you isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's choosing your own peace over their chaos. And sometimes that decision opens the door to something better than you ever imagined possible.